Hello everyone, this is Dr. Omahani Khan. I hope you're all doing well. Today, we're diving into a fascinating case of Veratrum album. This was one of those moments where the remedy was prescribed in under 5 minutes, yet the reasoning behind it ran deep. And the results? Nothing short of remarkable. The patient had a high fever, severe body aches, and within just 15 minutes of taking the remedy, he felt 60% better. His fever dropped, and the pain eased. With a relieved expression, he said, "Doctor, I'm feeling much better now." But the real question is, how did we arrive at the remedy so quickly? What were the key observations? What gestures and symbolic symptoms led me to Veratrum album? That's what we're going to uncover in this case study. The first impression, an unspoken language, as most of you know. In our offline clinic, we primarily see women and children. But that evening, around 7 p.m., a 35-year-old male patient walked in. He sat down, and what happened next caught my attention instantly. He closed his eyes completely. Now, imagine meeting someone for the first time, whether it's a stranger, a distant relative, or even a casual acquaintance. You naturally pick up on their energy, body language, and aura. Something about this patient's presence stood out like a bright flare in the dark. Despite his high fever and muscle pain, he sat there with his eyes tightly shut, as if shutting out the world. And then, still with his eyes closed, he said, "Doctor, I have a very high fever. My thighs hurt. My legs hurt. I'm a gym instructor." That was it. His whole interaction with me happened with his eyes shut. This was unusual. And my mind instantly started piecing the puzzle together. Why is he doing this? What is he trying to shield himself from? Sensitivity that speaks volumes. Then it struck me, he's super sensitive to my sensitivity. I was sitting there, fully covered in my burqa, my face veiled with niqab. He, in his own way, was responding to my sensitivity with his own sensitivity. Do you see what's happening here? This was plant sensitivity. The crucial differentiation, plant or mineral. Now, here's the real question. Why was this plant sensitivity and not mineral sensitivity? How do we differentiate between the two? This is exactly what we're going to explore, understanding the deeper layers behind this prescription, the subtle cues that led to Veratrum album, and how recognizing the gesture before the symptom can transform a case. Because sometimes, healing begins long before the medicine is given. It begins in the moment you truly see your patient. Let's break this down together. See, minerals are self-contained. Their sensitivity revolves around their own structure, their own stability, but not the structure or emotions of others. A mineral patient won't be sensitive to another person's emotions the way a plant patient would be. But this patient, his heightened awareness struck me. The moment he entered, he subconsciously observed every rule of the clinic. Who was allowed inside? Who wasn't? And then, almost instinctively, he noticed my attire, a fully veiled doctor, face completely covered. That's when it hit me, he wasn't just sensitive. He was sensitive to my sensitivity. And that's exactly how a plant behaves. Understanding plant sensitivity, think of a plant. If you alter its temperature, water supply, soil composition, or surrounding environment, it doesn't just adjust, it responds. The changes manifest in its appearance, the leaves droop, the color fades, or the growth pattern shifts. A plant doesn't just exist, it senses, reacts, and adapts. And that's precisely what this patient was doing. His gestures were echoing his surroundings. If, instead of me, a male doctor had been sitting there, his reaction would have been completely different. This wasn't a coincidence, this was a characteristic symptom. And this is the beauty of homeopathy. It trains us to observe, to go beyond symptoms and understand the patient's essence. Dr. Hahnemann always emphasized that we must pick out the symptoms that are striking, unusual, and deeply characteristic, the ones that define the patient's individuality. And that's exactly what happened here. His reaction wasn't like other male patients who come in, glance at the floor or to the side, say what they need to, take their medicine, and leave. This patient's response was different, too different to ignore. It stayed with me. By now, I knew this was plant sensitivity, not mineral sensitivity. But I needed to dig deeper. So, I asked him a few questions. Apart from the fever and body pain, is there anything else bothering you? Immediately, he dismissed it. No, there's nothing wrong. I probed again. Any stress, any emotional strain? He laughed, a hollow, numb kind of laughter. No, I don't get stressed at all. But that laugh told a different story. Something wasn't right. It reminded me of an arnica patient, someone who says I'm fine even when they're clearly not. But this wasn't arnica's delusion of well-being. There was something else at play. I knew I had to watch, not just listen. The gesture that spoke volumes for 2 full minutes, he sat with his eyes completely shut, completely disconnected from his surroundings. Then, he opened just one eye, and even then, it wasn't looking straight, it was glancing to the side while he continued talking. At that moment, a key rubric flashed in my mind, coma, eyes closed, one eye closed. This case was a reminder of the art of homeopathy, how true healing begins not just in what the patient says, but in what they show. Because sometimes, the body speaks before the words ever do. Why this rubric? The deeper meaning of coma now, let's talk about why I took this rubric. When we hear the word coma, we imagine a patient who appears lifeless, unresponsive, detached. But here's the crux, a comatose patient is not truly disconnected. He is alive. He is feeling everything, sensing everything, but from the outside, it seems as if he is completely shut off from the world. This patient was doing exactly that. A person in a vegetative state absorbs everything happening around him, yet he remains motionless, expressionless, as if frozen in time. He hears, he feels, he perceives, but he does not express. On the surface, he appears numb, but internally, he is acutely aware. And this is exactly what was happening here. For a full 5 minutes, the patient kept insisting, "Oh, I don't feel stress. No, I never get stressed." He laughed, brushed it off, acted as if nothing could ever touch him. But I knew better. If you claim to have zero stress, then why is your body suffering? You cannot escape your own emotions. The mind and body are too deeply intertwined for that. Most of the time, when a patient denies stress, we think of the common rubric delusion, well, he is. But this case was different. This was deeper. I chose coma because the patient was not just denying stress, he was burying it so deeply that he had convinced himself he was immune to it. But his body told another story. His sensitivity was so profound that he was even picking up my sensitivity, the fact that I was veiled, that my face was covered. And yet, outwardly, he was acting as if he felt nothing, as if he was dead to emotions. This was not just suppression, it was a form of survival. One thing I've learned in homeopathy is that every patient teaches you something new. Every case leaves behind a shade of understanding that stays with you forever. And this rubric? I will never forget it. Because today, I truly grasped its depth. A patient who is so sensitive that he picks up on the emotions of those around him, yet presents himself as numb, indifferent, as if untouched by the world. He feels too much, so he shows nothing. That is the essence of coma. And what happened next? Within 15 minutes of taking the medicine, his condition drastically improved. His thigh and body pain vanished, his high fever dropped, he looked at me and said, "Doctor, I feel 60% better." It was an incredible moment. This case was a powerful reminder of the importance of observing gestures, of understanding the unspoken language of the patient. Because, in the end, homeopathy is not just about symptoms, it's about perception, depth, and sensitivity. And in this case, we saw it beautifully, how this patient's environment shaped his reaction, how he absorbed the world around him just like a plant does. That's the beauty of plant sensitivity. Thank you so much for being part of this case study. I hope it gave you a new perspective on homeopathic observation. If you have any doubts, insights, or experiences to share, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. And if you found this case valuable, share it with other homeopaths because learning grows best when shared.
أيا من يدعي الفهم إلى كم يا أخا الوهم تعبي الذنب والذم وتخطي الخطأ الجم